Amy, welcome to the Big Skip Energy Podcast. How are we doing today?
We are doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm very excited to have you on the show today. Now, Amy, we met through a mutual friend, sort of. So, my coworker, Rick McKinley, who I believe you've also had the dubious honor of working with on something for his Rick's Picks, by the way,
Yes.
recommended you highly. So,
Hmm.
before we get started, why don't you tell me a little bit about how was your experience with Rick? How was he to work with?
Well, I won't give everything away. Rick's fun. Rick's really
Yeah,
fun.
no,
It was
no,
it
no.
was a different thing to do. I've never done things like that before. It was a blast. It was
Oh
great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Rick's Picks is a good thing that he's developed. It's a lot of
Hmm.
fun. Rick's a good dude. So I'm looking forward to hearing the content that you created for that one. But for my listeners that aren't familiar with you, don't know you, what you do, what you're all about, just take a minute, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. My name's Amy, and I have been in corporate sales for over 2 decades now. And I started within your world. I was a vendor within the credit space.
Yep.
I had 8 states that I covered for a long, long time. So I know many of you out there that are probably listening. Hello to everyone. It's been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did that for a long time, and then transferred over to what I do now. I loved every minute of that space and everybody that I connected with and my clients. I was a little bored and not growing anymore, so I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to take a different angle. But I also knew that I wanted to stay in corporate and I wanted to stay in sales. So
Yeah.
that's where we are now. Yeah.
So what? So if I'm hearing you right, then you basically thought that you'd reach your personal limit for
Yeah.
growth in what you were doing, and you wanted to take the next step, which is helping use your expertise to help other people do similar things, grow, and that kind of thing. Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement. I didn't know that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Okay. Okay.
I kind of just, I'm one that just, jumps off the cliff and figures it out on the way down. And so
We
that's
got a
what I
risk
did.
taker.
I was like, well, I'm done with this. So let's just be done with that. And then along the way, create what this is. But I took a minute to kind of figure out my next move and really recognize that I do have a passion for sales because I
Hmm.
have a passion for connection and communication. I have a psychology degree. I got certified in nonverbal communication as well. And then, of course, all my years in sales has helped that also. But really, then thinking back to my longevity in sales and what I did, and I was always craving more training, more things that I could do differently. And so out of that came this company and what I do and work with people now.
Very cool. Actually, I was gonna bring up the psychology part of it,
Hmm.
and also the nonverbal communication part of it. So I'm glad you provided me with that segue. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting because if you look at most of the top sales trainers out there right now, uh, I'd say without giving it, I'd say the vast majority of them fall back on psychological basis for why
Hmm.
people make the decisions that they make, why they buy, why they do this, that, the other. So that psychology background is really, really important. Can you talk to me a little bit more about how that plays not only into sales in general, but also how you train?
Yeah. Well, it's at the core of everything, truly. Social science is such a huge thing, and I think that we don't train on it enough in general. You see that in society all the time.
Sure.
Our personal relationships, all those things of how we communicate. And so we definitely don't do that on the side of business and really focusing on training in that world specifically. So we've done a lot of hard skill set training, which is great. That's never going to go anywhere. But we are
Hmm.
really in this modern sales world right now where people are looking for leaders. They're looking for thought leaders, people that can help them on their journey to success, and they're not looking for salespeople.
Hmm.
So in this kind of modern way, it's like, how do we do that together? How do we have mutual success? And it always goes back to the social science of how we're connecting. And so the psychology that I had really easily, played into that. I always leaned on that in my own sales career,
Yeah.
but it really took center stage and has now with sales as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, soft skills equal hard dollars, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's true. I don't like calling them soft skills, even though I know
Power
that's
skills.
the.
We call them power skills now.
God, you keep beating me to this. Oh man. All right.
Sorry.
So power skills
Mhm.
are. Let's just go ahead and talk about it. All right.
Yeah.
That is a group of skills, a skill set that you promote and talk a lot about.
Mhm.
Includes things like listening and that kind of thing. Talk to me about that because I want my listeners to be sure that they have a firm grasp of what really the core of those skills really consist of.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, those power skills that are center stage right now, they are the number one skill set that businesses are looking for when they're hiring today, which is really
Hmm.
interesting as well. But there are things like listening skills, um, negotiating skills, um, how you're speaking, which is different than what we think it is,
Hmm.
how you are following up, your cadences, all those things. So it's a really different, interesting way of looking at it that hasn't really been done before.
Yeah.
And the training around it within a business setting, we haven't seen that before either. So this is all newer to the scene. But those are really those focus ones. Social communication, hard conversations internally as well. All of those things are at the peak of power skills.
Yeah. I mean, it's so vital to what we do,
Hmm.
not only in the sales environment. Let's just think, but think about it in terms of how you interact with your colleagues, your coworkers,
Hmm.
your family, your friends. I mean, it's so important. I just got back from a training in Ohio with a group of mortgage professionals, and it's so funny. You said about the way that we speak and the way that we talk and that kind of thing. I put up the quote on there. It said, "Well, it's not what you said; it's how you said it." We've
Hmm.
all had that kind of argument with our significant other or
Yes.
whatever, right? And so they all got a kick out of that. But I was trying to drive home the importance of, guys. You got to understand this. It's really important.
Hmm.
Can you talk or expand on that a little bit and kind of some of the stuff that you cover pertaining to that particular topic?
Yes, absolutely. So to give you like an actual live example of that, and we can bring nonverbal into this a little bit too. If I say something to you, and I'm talking to you randomly, and you're on your phone, and I say to you, which is classic, we have all had this experience, you're not even listening to me. Yeah, you're not even
Mhm.
listening to me. And you say back to me, yes, I am. You said this, this, and this. That is repeating what I said. That's not hearing what
Right.
I said. And we do that a lot. The other thing that comes into play is that nonverbal there too. So what you just did in your example is that you're actually blocking and shut down. The other way that happens, especially in personal, this doesn't happen too much in business, but we see it in business as well, is that if we
Hmm.
were having a conversation right now and I was like this the whole time,
Standoffish. Yeah.
completely standoffish. So, you may be talking and I'm like, yeah, I hear you on that,
Yeah.
completely different than, oh, that's interesting, I hear you, right?
Hmm.
Lands completely different than
Yeah.
the other
Or
one. So
yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And most of the
yeah,
time we're
it's so
not,
funny.
unless we are intentionally aware and
Hmm.
practice those things on a day to day, we are not aware of them. Most of our communication, up to 93% of our communication, is not verbal.
Yeah.
So if we are not highly aware of what we're doing all the time, then we're losing that impact quickly.
Hmm. And I love that you said that, bringing in the intentional piece to it, because a lot
Hmm.
of people think, oh, well, no, I think I do a fine job at this. I'm like,
Hmm.
let me watch you or listen to some of your interactions with your customers or something. I guarantee you're not doing as nearly as good of a job as you think you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so funny. And the the other thing I wanted to get you to talk a little bit about is the active listening piece of it. So
Mm.
so I teach on it's an acronym, it's PACE, and so it's
Mm.
and the A is active listening, and that's a big deal. And I know it's some people say, "Gosh, that's been beaten to death," and we all know there's a reason it keeps coming up. And there's a reason it's still being taught is because so few people grasp that. And I think that's probably to me one of the top three skills that
Hmm.
anybody can have to be successful in work, life, business, whatever. Can you talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit about what you're seeing as far as new ways to try and improve it, that kind of thing, or
Hmm.
something that my listeners can take away and say, you know what, try A, B, or C if you really want to see how well you're actively listening.
Yes. So I agree with you. It is the top one that we can always practice and do. And I will say too that it's a lifelong practice.
Yeah,
There's not any situation where like, yep, nailed that, and then the next day you're going to nail it again. You're probably going to, skin your knees a little bit here and there
yeah,
and
yeah.
remind yourself, oh yeah, that's what I did, because we fall into our old patterns really easy. Um, with listening skills, one of the things that we do, especially in sales, is because if we have somebody in front of us, then we're excited that we have somebody in
Can't
front of
wait to
us,
talk.
and we never shut up.
Yep.
So, we kind of solution quickly. So a lot of times when we're listening, or if I'm listening back to clients' calls, that's what I hear is that their potential client will say something and then immediately they solution. So they go to
Yeah.
product service immediately. We
Yeah.
need to, right? And so they need to listen more and actively listen. So what they're doing there is that they are waiting to respond and not to hear. Classic
Hmm.
case of that. There's a couple ways that you can do that. So keeping in mind to never solution immediately, like never solution
Yep.
immediately.
Don't show up
So
and throw up. All right.
right. So if somebody says something, then you can either ask them another question about that,
Mm-hmm.
or one of the things that I love, the golden nugget question is tell me more. So
Tell me
before
more.
you
Tell me more about that.
solution, tell me more about that.
Yep.
People will expand. The beauty of that is that it gives you grace in time, so you're not solutioning right away, and they're giving you more information to go off of. A lot of times when we do that and we classically solution right away, then we're missing some of those nuggets that we don't even know we're missing. So
Mm-hmm.
giving them time to talk a little bit more, and that's the classic way to do that. And getting uncomfortable with a little bit of silence. If we ask
Yes.
questions, especially when we're on virtual, it is super easy if you have more than one person in the room for them to
Mm-hmm.
not respond. And then our reaction, because of our insecurity, is to cover that up with
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. People want to talk. They want to talk and fill
Yeah,
that space, and they don't like the awkward silence. So it's
yeah.
interesting you say that because that's a big piece in one of the things that I cover a lot of times. Are you familiar with or know Jeb Blunt?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so Jeb's whole framework about reaching out to somebody for the first time and that kind of thing is you get to the end and then you shut up
Hmm.
because you don't want to fill in that space with a bunch of blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
because and I think that's really 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 important.
Hmm.
That and it's so hard to do. I mean, I'm guilty of it.
Oh, we all are.
Yeah,
All
and
are.
so it's yeah, we hate the awkward silence.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than the active listening piece, what would you say is probably the most commonly needed power skill?
Mm, I would say for power skills, your nonverbal communication
Okay.
is right up there.
So
Uh, we
being,
have
I'm
hmm?
sorry. Go ahead.
we have a split second to make an impact, and
Hmm.
within that split second, those people that you're in front of have already decided if they're going to trust, like, and do business with you.
Yeah.
And 76% of the time, it's accurate.
Yeah.
That's a crazy stat.
Yeah.
76% of the time, we walk around the planet sizing people up all the time subconsciously to see if we would trust them, if we'd be okay with them as we're walking through the grocery store or, picking up our kids or whatever we're
Yeah.
doing. We are just constantly innately doing that as humans. And so in business, we're doing the same thing and we don't think that enough. So I am completely guilty of this as well back in my sales days of getting out of the car, checking my phone, watching my phone as I walk into the building, get in the elevator, text somebody, get up to the space, say good morning to the receptionist, type of thing, wait, get on my phone again as I'm waiting, as I'm walking into the meeting or the boardroom, maybe get some coffee. I have lost all of that engagement.
Yep.
You do not know who is going to be in the room with you. You don't know who's going to be in the elevator with you. You don't know who's going to be holding the door for you when you walk in. It could be another client. It could be the CEO of the company that you're wanting to get in. You just do not know. So creating that impact right away and starting your meeting before the meeting is
Mm-hmm.
really, really important. So before you ever get out of your car, before you ever walk out of the hotel room, if it's a conference, those types of things, your mindset and your body language has to be in that meeting, which means your phone is completely away. You're not looking down. There's some, techniques of power posing or posture.
Right.
It sounds cheesy, but posture
No, it
means
matters.
leadership. Yeah, and it creates leadership. So if we are looking for somebody in a room to connect with, we are looking for somebody that invites us into access to speak to,
Mm-hmm.
and that's posture, which
Yeah.
is
Okay.
really,
So
really
like, let's
cool.
just. I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I'm a very large man. Okay.
Hmm.
I am 6'3". 245 pounds, and if I am next to somebody, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm looming over them. Right. It
Hmm.
makes them uncomfortable, and so I try very very hard to like take a very non-threatening stance next to somebody,
Hmm.
because I'm not going to stand there with poking my chest out, looking down
Right.
on them. I also have a very loud, deep voice, and so I have a tendency to be, if I'm not aware of it, a little intimidating. But we have to realize that it's not because I'm actually intimidating somebody. It's all
Right.
the subconscious processing of things that we just kind of take for granted every day. I mean, hell, let's just look at eye contact.
Yes.
I mean, let's say you're walking through the office and someone's saying good morning to you, just like to your point, right? If you're on your phone, you're texting, "Oh, hey, good morning, Amy." Yeah, morning. Instead
Hmm.
of like actually even looking over, much less turning your
Right.
shoulders and facing them, or something like that, it all makes a difference, right?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Yep. And what the example you just made there of having the eye contact, but then also turning to engage with them, that's
Mm-hmm.
called fronting. And so when we
Why you
actually
fronting?
front, yeah, it's called fronting. And so when we actually front with someone where our torso is engaged as well,
Uh
then
huh.
that creates full engagement. So another technique to do that is if you are sitting around a boardroom and somebody says something, instead of just looking over, turn to acknowledge them
Yeah.
and speak to them that way. So your torso is facing directly to them. It's a huge power skill. It's something that we don't think about enough and work on
Mm-hmm.
enough. And we always can be doing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on the nonverbal side, okay, so people can sometimes have some fun with this, but they can also drive themselves insane, like
Yeah.
overanalyzing the way that somebody looks. I think a lot of people know things like um, seeing how someone's legs are crossed and that kind of thing. Say maybe they
Hmm.
cross over towards the person they're that kind of stuff. But let's just from a practicality standpoint, if you are a salesperson and you are talking to somebody, a decision maker, somebody important,
Hmm.
stakeholder, whatever you want to call it, and you're trying to see if, frankly, if you are engaged, if they're engaged with you or not.
Hmm.
What are some of the key things that, like, maybe two or three top things that someone can look for to be like, in mid conversation, say, I need to make an adjustment.
Hmm. So I talk about this a lot, and not necessarily just around the nonverbal cues that you were getting, but just basic check-in. So when
Yeah,
you're in a meeting, we need to do more basic check-in throughout the meeting instead of the front and the end only. So if
yeah,
we cover a section, then let's engage on this. Let's stop here for a second. What was important to you here? What stood out to you here before we move on to the next? Right?
that's
We
better.
really,
That's better than
yeah.
saying, you have any questions?
Yeah, never any questions. Take that off your talk track.
Yep, yep. I'm
We
guilty
don't
of it.
ask.
Hell, I just did it. I just did that,
We
and I
all
had to
are.
stop
Yeah,
myself.
we all are. We all are. I work with a lot of people on reframing those questions to have the impact, right? Because we want to be different. We want to
Hmm.
stand out. And so many things are happening now, and there's so many companies out there doing the exact same thing. That's your differentiator. Your
Yep.
differentiator are your talk tracks and how you're uniquely coming in. It all needs to be authentic to you, but we need to throw out those old ways a little bit of those types of things. Any questions? Nope. We're going to do that a little bit differently, right? So
Hmm.
that's one. But the other thing is that if you notice them doing something like checking their watch all the time
Yeah.
or shifting a lot, I have an example of this. A couple years ago, I was walking into a client's office to talk about the training landscape that we were going to do for the year, and we were talking about it, and then we got to price. And as soon as we started talking about price, he leaned back and crossed his arms.
Mm-hmm.
I could have easily gone on and pushed on and then would have been miserable the whole like day until I heard back from them thinking, oh my God, he hated it. And all, we get in our head
Not
all the time.
necessarily.
Right. Well, I stopped the meeting and I
Right.
just said, so I want to stop here, check in. How are you feeling about this? And he immediately recognized what he did because I did it so quickly. And he was
Yeah.
like, oh no, it's freezing in here. Isn't it freezing in this room? So the the learning side of this is just that. We
Mm-hmm.
cannot 100% assume that we know what's happening with people with their nonverbal. Unless
Right.
that's all you do for a living is analyze nonverbal, which there's people out there that do that.
Sure. Yeah.
I would be very careful in getting too comfortable with those signs and then
Yeah.
thinking you know what they are. So the best way to do that is always to just communicate it. Hey, how are we doing here? Like, how are you feeling about what we just presented? Any shifts or changes that we need to make? Those types of things before you move on. So if you are feeling it, we all have that gauge. We all have that gut reaction to somebody shifting and doing something non-verbally. Cue into it and just ask the question.
I like that because I think a lot of times we focus on the micro commitments in the global sales process. We sometimes
Hmm.
forget to actually take that and apply it to our actual individual conversations, right?
Hmm.
And that's doing exactly what you described.
Yeah.
So that's a great tip. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit to,
Hmm.
we've talked about listening, we've talked about some other power skills. A little birdie might have told me that that you're working on something new.
Oh, I'm going to talk to that little birdie.
Yeah, yeah. So
Tell me about
it's
that.
yeah. So if you were to want to share anything, or can you share anything about this new project you have going on?
Hmm. So we are in the works of revamping some things in the company to make it a little bit more speaker focused. I do a lot of speaking work,
Mm-hmm.
but really to take the selling out of sales is the direction that we are going with this. So everything that we've talked about, those hard skill tactics are really great. They're not necessarily just for sales, though. We think about it a lot in sales. So having that framework and that base, but then really building on top of that with some really great solid relationship skills that come into play. And to your point, they come into play even outside of work as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. But really start working on those nuanced things and those micro moments that we want to create to have that success. A lot of times we think about big success. When I'm talking about goals with people, it's always a dollar amount at the end of the year. And so we start there and we bring it all the way back to your day to day and
Yep.
what are you doing in these micro goals to set you up for that? Because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
do that, it's going to be a lot harder to hit that goal. So that's where we're shifting. We're
Okay.
shifting to just kind of this broader element of stop selling to start selling, really,
Mm-hmm.
and to get into this modern way of sales and how we're doing this as a whole.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
That's it's going to be good. I'm excited to
it's
learn
going to
more
be good.
about it.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Um, and I should have done this earlier before we got into these conversations. Just do me a favor for listeners that may not know what we mean necessarily by soft and hard skills.
Mhm.
Would you just do me a favor and define them for me?
Yeah. So, your hard skills are things like tracking how many calls you make per day. Like if you were brand new and you're doing cold call outreach, if you're doing 30 calls a day, we're tracking that. What's in your CRM system? The hard skills of things like your outreach in emails, all the systems that are out there today that auto generate those things for you. What
Quantifiable.
Yes. What are you putting into place to track all of that? The flip side of it is these power skills, relationship skills that are a little bit more micro and they are in the power skills. So everything you're doing that's trackable, you are doing that via email, via call, via in-person meeting, conferences, all of those things. Everything we're talking about in power skills can be placed in that bucket, and those are the things that you're working on within that framework to make you better within those relationships.
Okay. Thank you so much. And like I said,
Mhm.
sorry, I probably should have done that at the beginning, but
No, and I know
better late
that,
than never.
soft skills and power skill, all, whatever you want to call it, it is definitely a buzz right now in business
Hmm.
and what everyone is, looking for. So it's easy to say, okay, thanks. Yep. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get on a call with somebody and they say, I have great relationship skills. I'm like, me too, but I don't have control of meetings if I don't do it a certain way. Right.
Yeah,
So we
but
can, we, yeah, we have to practice and we have to train on this equally as we do everything else that we know how to do.
and it just like any skill that is diminishable needs to be refreshed from time to time,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I think especially in our business, well, sorry, my business now used to be here. So, but in mortgage and banking, let's be honest, it's a little bit of an aged group.
Hmm.
So with that comes a certain level of comfort. It also comes a
Yep.
certain level of diminished skills. It's really important that even if you've been in this business for
Hmm.
20, 25, 30 plus years, that if you're still continuing to want to get out there and get after it and make a difference, you have to refresh these things. And plus, to your point, people like you who specialize in this type of thing
Hmm.
bring new and improved methodologies, concepts to something that help build those more.
Hmm.
You know, it's interesting in banking in particular. You've got oh no, I do fine. We've got
Hmm.
customers. We do a great job interacting with our customers. That kind of thing, kind of attitude. And it's just and they might do well, but you know what? We can always do better. And this
Yeah.
interesting time that we're in the mortgage business right now, we've got a lot of people wanting to sharpen the old saw, right? And
Hmm.
so this is really important. All right. So we've got a few minutes left here, Amy. I want to know share something with me and my listeners that would surprise me about you.
Oh, goodness. Surprise me as a human, like outside of business.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be.
Um,
Yeah, that's fine.
um, yeah, in my, my near future, hope out of this company's going to expand and do its thing, but my dream has always been to run a sanctuary farm. So if
Really?
if I can get my husband on board one day, that'll be in the works, hopefully, like in the next, I don't know how many years, but I would love to run a sanctuary farm
Talk to me
someday.
about that.
I've always been an animal person ever since I was little, and here's another. I've been vegetarian for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
Um, so I've always, I always want to take in every creature I ever see. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, would love to own one that, is for elderly dogs and cats and maybe some
Mm-hmm.
goats and those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what? This sounds like one of those terrible interview questions. If you were an animal, what would you be? But what's your favorite? I mean, what's your favorite animal?
Um, that's a really tough one. I have a lot of favorites.
All right.
But I would say if I were to be one, I would probably be a cat because because first of all, not everybody loves them because you have to work. You have to work for them to like you, which I kind of love about them.
Uh
Like
huh.
they're
Uh
very
huh.
like, oh no,
I'm
you
learning a little bit more about Amy right now.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
There you go. See? But I love how once they absolutely you're in with them, you're in,
Okay.
So cats are kind of my jam. The other thing, since I am psychology backed too, a lot of my practice in psychology in college was around with rats. And so I
Yeah.
actually
The
have a
rat
really
maze, right?
special, yep, place in my heart for rats. I did have a pet rat through college.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, all these people who knew me back in my mortgage vendor days are gonna be like, what? Um, yeah. So they're incredibly intelligent. You can train them to do crazy things, and they're one of the sweetest little animals on the planet. So, yeah. So there you go. So hopefully a
Okay.
sanctuary farm with some littles. Yeah.
I like that. So I like to ask people that love animals this question: what's your least favorite?
Snakes.
I was gonna guess either snakes or spiders. Those are the most common two,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't trust anything that doesn't have shoulders, right?
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, if my listeners want to learn more about
Mhm.
you, where should
Yeah.
they go?
They can go to LinkedIn. I would love to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. Say hi to me, please. They can go to salesandpresence.com, which is my website. And then if they want to grab my book as well, they can go to Amazon and grab that.
Very good, very good. All right, is there anything else that we should know about you and what you do?
Um, no, I would just shout out to everybody. Keep on doing what you're doing. You know,
For sure.
it's a hard grind. No matter what industry you're in, but I know your industry specifically, it's a hard grind,
Yeah.
and you have to have a passion for it, and I know you all do. And so keep trucking along, learn something new, grow when you can, and you're doing awesome. So yeah.
All right. Well, Amy, thank you so much for taking some time to come on the show and talk to my listeners. It was a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again soon, especially after you got your new stuff going there.
Yes, absolutely. We'll do it again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.